LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot stop your new clients from emailing you at 3 a.m. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you be in 3 places at once. And while we can't help you organize your calendar, LinkedIn can help you land more clients so you have a calendar to organize. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
This is what everyone's talking about.
Everything's on the table.
This is what champions come to take. This is what everyone came to see.
And the slam!
No do-overs. No second chances. No more Mr. Nice Guy. This is winner take all. The NBA Finals continue on ABC and the ESPN app.
Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning. Welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me, back in the chair, Alan Medlock, a Medlock1 on Twitter. Coming to you on Saturday morning. Tried yesterday morning. Technical difficulties kept us away, but that's okay. We've got another fun game to talk about. But before we get into anything, Alan, of course, last week was Blogger and Podcaster Day in St. Louis. We both were there, along with a lot of our close personal friends. And it was just a fun time. I know a lot of people probably by the time you're listening to this have, either heard the audio on Viva Alberto's or Dealing the Cards or heard other people talk about it, but we haven't had a chance to kind of break it down. So Alan, what did you think?
Now, I was blown away by the hospitality and the feel of the. I'm doing the same thing right now that I did while we were there. Is I tried to avoid any of the negative connotations that are easy to go to,
right? Knowing
that I was a fan of the last last administration and all kinds of stuff like that. But all I can say is there was a definite change in the air. It was there was a lot of positivity. You could just tell that I feel like they're on the right track. I feel like there's some learning curve that's gone on with Chaim himself and the organization. And I go back to this all the time. When we did the call with Ollie and the from spring training, and we were asking questions, and there were questions asked, and a lot of those answers aligned with what Chaim was answering his questions with, meaning that I think there's alignment from the top and bottom about communication, way to get the word out, expectations that they've set for the team, and all the good stuff and all the buzzwords excuse me, that we have going on right now in professional sports that hey, this kind of feels like it's the changing of the times, that things have gotten a little bit younger. I think the approach to professional sports has changed, and that now the Cardinals feel more in line with what's going on in in Major League Baseball than we've probably felt in the past few years. And that may be a stupid statement, just from scratching the surface of the conversations we had, but I walked away with a good feeling of positivity walking out of the room that, hey, I feel like the Cardinals are in good hands. I don't think that Chaim's the enigma we thought of being the guy from Boston and Tampa Bay, where he's he's going to run through the analytical side of this and the people don't matter, because that was definitely not the feeling that I got. And honestly, he was extremely personable. That's one of the things that really blew me away with the whole ordeal of just hanging out probably 2 to 3 innings more than we had ever seen before, and having personal conversations with guys. I had a personal conversation with him, just things that I didn't think was ever felt possible. But I think that it was really, they like to bring our group in as almost a family type situation, because they know that's how you're going to get the word out. Very, very good weekend.
It's funny you say that about a family thing. It reminds me back in 13. It was the year right after, it was after Stan had passed, and they had those little pins that had a 6 on them and whatever the case, and they gave them all to us because they said we think of y'all as our family as well, as the Cardinal family. And so yeah, I think they do. I think that they kind of approach it in that way. I mean, maybe that has shifted and ebbed and flowed over the years, but I agree. I would have the same issue that you did of when I wrote about it on the Substack, because when you say things, it's very easy for people then to say, well, it wasn't like that, or that's maybe make it think that you didn't care for the way Mo did it. Mo did a great job. Mo did a wonderful job with us. Was always willing to be there, always interested in answering questions, and candid, did fairly candidly as well. But it was different. It was significantly different to have Chaim in the room, who not only was more in line with the age of the group, even though he was still older than most, not older than everybody, obviously, since we were there. But it come to baseball in a different era, and approaches this differently. So I don't know that he gave us any more answers than Mo would have, although he was very in depth with a lot of the things that he said. I think that it was, you're right. The fact that he stuck around for 2 or so innings afterwards, just talking to people, was pretty impressive. And he took all the questions really seriously. Even the should you put barbecue sauce on a hot dog question. He approached that pretty well. He laughed about it, but he also, he had the humor that he did, but he was also very earnest about what he was saying. And I think, and again, he put out, hey, we haven't done anything yet. This is a nice little run that the Cardinals are on, but this is not anywhere close to where we want to be. And I think that was nice to hear. I mean, not that we haven't heard him say that quite a bit, but that idea that I think, again, he's coming in it with a different mindset, right? The front office of Mosaic and stuff were always in the win now mindset. And so I think they would have treated this little run as, okay, we're winning now, and so we need to continue to win now. And Chaim is not. Chaim is like, hey, we're winning now. That's great, but this is not sustainable. We're going to build something that is sustainable. And to me, that means if the trade deadline comes and we can get XYZ for this player, we're going to do it. Even if it hurts this year's team, it's going to set up a longer run. And I think that was very interesting. I'm always fascinated by your questions when you bring them out, because you ask questions from that coach mentality that not everybody, pretty much nobody else, has in the room. And I really liked your question about, what this means about culture and everything, the decisions that he's making. Did you get the answer that you thought you'd get?
Yes, and more so. And it's funny you asked that, because in both the questions that I asked, and I I kind of stacked mine. I don't know. one, I stacked them. We probably spoke more than than I think Carson was comfortable, the fact that we were kind of having a conversation about this. That was exactly what that one thing to me that's highly entertaining to find out is I want to know how to better myself to meet the kids that I deal with every day, and to make them feel wanted, and to make them buy into what our expectations are, versus how he looks at this culturally with guys that are making a lot of money. It's their job, and how you thread that needle of you may be a pain in the butt, but you're a 2020 guy and we need to have you. It's one of those things I've kind of wondered how that works. So when I asked that my first question, well, let me back up to this. I was really intrigued from the fact that whenever I walked in the room with them, knowing where Bloom came from, being a Tampa Bay guy, being a Boston guy, into St. Louis after being out of baseball for a little while, I walked into the room wondering, are we going to be treated like Mo did, which wasn't bad, but it was we're dangling a carrot to you guys. I felt like that would under Mo, and honestly, that's kind of their job. They're just trying to get free pub out of this, and it's just show appreciation of, hey, thank you guys for doing this on your own dime. One of those things. Mm-hmm. I wondered how much we were going to walk into the Bloom side of this, to where it was going to be robotic and everything was going to be analytical. And I think he's been great in front of cameras, great in front of interviews, very approachable. I knew that would be the case, but I did wonder how much of the personal aspect was going to be taken out of this in general. I was blown away by how much it's pushed, how relationships were pushed, because that's honestly what we do every day. You can't coach the kids that if they don't think you love them.
Yeah.
And I was really, really blown away. And even so much so that I kind of second in my mind while I'm asking the question of, don't go here, because you don't want to step on any of the positivity that you can tell that he's exuding while he walks in the room. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of double step on my own question a little bit. But yes, that was the answer that I wanted to hear, which surprised me because I didn't think that's what I was going to get. And that it does matter. It's also one of those where I would like to pick the scab of what he was talking about how they rate the guys that are going to buy into their culture, which he prefaced it by saying, hey, we're never perfect. You never know. And he clearly brought up a guy that they brought over in a trade in a previous organization that was a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those to where, in 10 years, I'd like to find out who that was. You know what I mean? Because I wonder if that kind of aligns with some of the things that we've heard before of being the fly on the wall of who was a pain in the butt in that clubhouse. But obviously that means a lot to them right now. And I really like the answer. It's one of those, it's about the process every day and not the outcome. And that's tough to see sometimes. And it's even tough for your players sometimes. Honestly, the guys that buy into the process are the ones you want to keep for the most part anyway. And it sounds like that's exactly what they're doing. And I was actually really thrilled with the answers of both the questions of how they are weighing those things as opposed to, just necessarily talent and what they're doing in the vertical alignment from the minor leagues up.
Mo also talked about, extensions, and how not only, I mean, he kind of has said a lot of things that we've heard him say before. Both sides have to do this. He talked about, them taking on risk by doing it because it's all on the player beforehand. But I also think, and I don't remember if it was in that question or if it was a response to yours, was that idea of trying to make sure that it's a player that you're still going to like after you give them a whole lot of money. That kind of thing. And that's not just from a personal standpoint, but also a work ethic standpoint and all this other stuff. And, again, that's something that's very difficult to judge. But it was also another element of this whole extension discussion, because we talk about extension discussions all the time, right? They should do this, and they should do that, and they should lock this guy up. And I think it was just another element of that it shows how complicated this whole thing can be. It's not just a you're good, let's give you money.
Yes, that's and that's I thought that was great too. The first thing that popped into my mind, and there was even this question that was brought up, is something stuck out to me. Is the body language that we have seen out of Mo and the body language that we've seen out of Chaim when Jordan Walker's brought up.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
No, but I
It
remember
was
you definitely catching it with Mo, and yeah.
Oh, it was one of those to where the minute that somebody asked about Walker when he was struggling, you could tell that Mo was like, I have a lot of things to say on this, and I just can't. And he had to choose his words almost perfectly, which he was very good about doing, but it was also kind of he could talk around the answer really easy. He was good about that. But I thought the reaction alone spoke volumes. Bloom's did as well. And what my first reaction on Mo's was, are they not getting the work ethic out of Walker that they that that they're that they expect? That really bothered me the first time. But now I think that the way that Bloom approached that was he works his tail off, and we just hope that it sticks at this level because we've seen him working at this level before that he doesn't. And I walked away thinking, okay, this is intriguing to see how this is going to be handled, because I don't think that'll be the next extension at all. I don't, like you and I talked about at the deal. They may not make a lot of sense for some of these early buyouts, with Weatherholt being a college and older player. But I just kind of thought that was a good. That opened up a good conversation piece of. I don't know if that's what they're going to be in the market to do, anytime soon with the signing the long term extensions. And I think that with under Mo, you could expect one every spring training, which I kind of liked. I don't know if this will be the organization to do that, at least in the next year or two.
Yeah. It was interesting when they were talking about Jordan Walker. And I mean, one, it went along with your change, talking about a change of scenery on some of these guys. And he said he didn't want Jordan Walker to have to be one of those guys, right? They have worked really hard to make sure that Jordan Walker didn't figure it out. They figured it out in St. Louis and not figured it out somewhere else. But he also said, look, it took people forgetting the past and taking a deep breath and kind of coming at it with a clean slate. And I think not only was that, I mean, and maybe I'm reading a lot into it, which is very possible, but I think not only was that the organization coming at Jordan Walker and saying, okay, look, you're gonna start over here, but it also may have been Jordan Walker, realizing, hey, they've told me I've got to put in this work, or I've got to continually put in this work. And they've found ways that worked. Because, I mean, Ollie talked about it last year on the radio, how, not that the effort wasn't there, but I think it was more like it wasn't consistent, I think, to some degree. But it felt like everybody just took a step back, and maybe it was just, we've got new faces in the room, and that makes it easier for everybody to get over whatever kind of issues that we've had in the past and find some common ground, and it has worked. I will also say, whether intentional or not, Nolan Gorman's name never came up in that kind of discussion.
Yeah.
And I think it is more the fact that Jordan Walker was doing well. But I start to wonder if maybe this front office is getting ready to move on from Nolan Gorman. I know that they wanted him to do well this year, but it hasn't clicked. It has clicked in a here and there. Hit a home run this week, great. But I think it's pretty notable how often they're pinch hitting for him, or not starting him against lefties and things of that nature. I don't know. I think that it may be that he has kind of worn out as well, to the point that they're willing to take their risk that he might be a change of scenery guy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's I mean that's obviously the hot button right now, just because of how lost he kind of looks, even after the bomb the other night. I agree with that. I think that you will probably see Urias play a lot. Whenever he's healthy, they'll call it a platoon, but I think that that may be the band aid for a little while, and you'll see some DH spots and stuff like that out of Gorman. But that's what the season was going to be about anyway. It's kind of that prove it year, and we've had these conversations a lot over the last 3 years, but it's clearly what this is you know to you sell us on what you can do, and you know what, it's one of those. I think that we've seen enough that we probably have a pretty good idea about what Nolan Gorman is, and it's even if he I mean, he going to be a 25-30 homer guy somewhere? I mean, if that happens, it's probably going to be a few and far between, 1 year off type situation. And, you know, eh, more power to him on that. But I think that for the long term, I think the story's kind of been written on his future in St. Louis. I agree with you.
You know, one of the reasons that Nolan Gorman is still on the roster, I mean, there's many, but one of the reasons is the Cardinals don't have a clear
Yes.
succession plan there. I know a lot of people have been talking about Blaze Jordan, but even Jeff Jones put out today, he's asked a couple people about it, and yeah, Jordan can play third base. He can, but it's not good defense. I mean, it's like you said. I think the phrase was he's not unplayable, but it's really close. So, and again, with the defense, a staff that doesn't strike a whole lot of people, you need good defense, and Nolan Gorman has brought that. We know, we've talked about it. He has definitely stepped up his defensive game this year. Do you think there's any chance, maybe not this year, but in the offseason, that they shift Weatherholt back to third and then try to find a second baseman?
Yeah, I've wondered about how they were going to handle it. The I mean, well, it was funny. My next question to you wasn't going to be about a change of position, but it was one of those that is that going to be a position to where they find a stopgap, and is that going to be a JC type situation where they let that run a little bit? I don't know. To me, I'm such a believer in building up the middle that I don't want them to break up Wynn and Weatherholt.
That's fair.
And honestly, it's one of those as well to where I want Scott to hit enough to where he's going to be justifiable in center field every day. That's another concern that I have a little bit. Even if that's Church, I just want to build up the middle so much, and I like the stability to keep those guys there. Then you go and you find a third baseman or figure out what that's going to look like. But yeah, I mean, I do kind of wonder how much how everything will be on the table, or if Weatherholt's like, if they've been like, hey, let's not mess with it because he's going to be a 7-8 WAR guy. Let's keep him where he is. I don't know, but it is intriguing to see what they have, considering that they don't have any heir apparent that's going to play third base at the moment. Yeah, I thought about that, and I think everybody's looking at the hot bat and to see who they can call up quickly, but I just don't know if that's the way the organization is going to run. I do think that was part of the reason to bring in Urias in the beginning was he could be a 3-position guy as the backup, but now it's going to turn in he may be an everyday guy at third when he's back.
Well, I mean, it's possible, but then again, and I always thought Urias was brought in not only for defensive or to be a backstop of Gorman if this didn't work, which it's seeming not. But I also wonder. I mean, Urias is one of those guys that a contender tends to want, right? I mean, if he hits well enough,
that's another factor.
He's another guy that you sell off for some sort of AA prospect, maybe. And then you just put Gorman back out there, and we're in the same spot. I don't know. I think third base is a very interesting scenario. Not quite the same way as they just never developed anybody under Nolan Arenado, and not that Nolan was here like it's not like a Yadi Molina situation, but for some reason that's just not a spot where anybody's there's not any prospects in a system that has some decent prospects. There's not anybody right now at the third base, and you wonder, is that a focus? Will that be a focus in the draft of guys that could at least play third base? Will they look at a guy and see if they can move him to third base? Who knows? I mean, I don't know, but it doesn't. It feels like, or that might be where they buy 1-year rentals for a couple years, until they can develop somebody. I don't know, but it does feel like they're going to have to do something because the current situation is not really tenable. I
Yeah.
don't think. I mean, it's you know somebody put in one of their discords. When Nolan Gorman spikes, it's because he's spiking toward actually getting to average. For the
Yeah.
most part, he's very below average, and it's just. I mean, you looked last night. You watched. He watched. He swung at pitches that were in the middle of the zone, missed them.
Yeah.
And it just like whatever it worked for Jordan Walker, it the same kind of click hasn't happened for Nolan Gorman, and maybe it just never will.
Yeah. That's yeah. There was a good article in the off season about, hey, we know who he is. He's played the equal number of games of ex player and player, the guys that have proven themselves already. So for him, the proving ground for him is pretty much run out. It's one of those, and that it's one of those. There were times this year where he looked like he was enjoying playing. And that's one of those. I'm just like, okay, well, maybe there's some hope here. But yeah, I mean, for the long and short of this, whatever their competition window is this year, where they're going to stay in the wild card, I fully believe they are, depending on what happens at the deadline. I'm not saying they're going to go get somebody, but you know where I'm going with this. Everybody has the same answer, but yeah, for the term that they think that they're really going to be in the division race, whether that's 7 or 8, it's just not going to be a fit.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney Plus.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are Gary the Snake. And your last name? The Snake.
Dream Team. Hit new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working it.
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney Plus, rated PG.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Hey guys, today I'm interviewing my cat about his perfect bistro food. Percy, you seem to be a big Perfect Bistro fan. Care to comment? Totally. What do you like about it? You love the high-quality ingredients? And the delicious flavors, of course. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Listen to Percy, guys. Visit perfectbistro.com to try it for your cat.
Yeah. Cardinals did make other roster moves this week, and most notably was the return of Lars Nootbaar last night. It doesn't look like Nootbaar's, he kind of walked right in, right? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any issues with him going forward. Had a good night last night, was running well. So JC goes down. What do you think we're going to see on the regular? I mean, are you excited about the return of Lars Nootbaar?
You know what? It's surprisingly enough, kind of like we talked about last week. It's kind of weird how you feel about, because last year it was one of those. A, he's definitely getting traded.
Mm-hmm.
B, is he ever gonna live up to the hype? As the batted ball, the everything that hit, great strike zone command. Is that ever going to fit into what they do? And I thought about it, and I was like, man, I'm kind of excited to see him back. Whenever he was kind of about midway through his rehab stint, and I go, I never would have thought I was going to say that within the last 2 years. But one, I do really, really wonder about the health, because I've asked some people around about that injury, and I think it is terrible. And to have it on both heels, I think was really, really bad. Yeah. And in the post game last night, he made a comment about that. He said, Hayes was asking him about, how it felt to be back, and in one of those, in that scenario, it may have been Clay. Yeah, I can't remember who was doing the post game last night, but he made a comment about, he goes, well, it's a lot better than it felt after last year. Mm-hmm. And maybe he meant to put that plug in, but I don't know. But honestly, the more I think about it is, the biggest issue about him being in the lineup last night to me was the fact that we didn't get to see him with the Weatherholt was a disappointment. Probably tells me a lot about the fact that I wanted him back more than I anticipated, and it was really nice to see. And you think, hey, this lineup looks pretty darn good when he's in it, and that's somewhat intriguing. I kind of felt like, I like Fermin, but it's one of those, it's kind of the fish out of water feeling in the outfield. I don't know why I feel that way, because I think he's played well out there, but I don't know. It was actually nice to see what we saw last night, and the big double was awesome, and then running out the single was cool. And I'd love to see whether Holt in the lineup today. I don't anticipate it, but I'd like to see where everything goes with both of them, just to see it full strength and see what this can be.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, running out of the box on that's single / error, and the Reds were absolutely terrible playing baseball last night. It was great for the Cardinals, but it was a rough game. If you were a Reds fan, I can't imagine watching that game. But beating that out was great. But I thought, he was on second base and scored on a single to the outfield. I thought, we saw the double. He ran down a ball in the outfield, caught it.
Yep.
He didn't ever seem to be. I mean, I'm not gonna say I could judge it from what his speed was beforehand, but he moved well. He never seemed to have any hesitation, and like you said, I mean, if he has played his whole career with those, hurting, or at least most recently hurting, to be able to get out there and play without that kind of pain would, in theory, take him to another level. So then the question becomes,
I knew it was going.
What do you do? I mean, there's already been some buzz or some name drops in some articles about, he could be a person available for if this team or that team was looking for an outfielder, like the Yankees or whatever, with Aaron Judge being out for a little bit. Do the Cardinals go that way, or do they? I mean, again, I think that that's a very good possibility because of the future building, but Lars is under control for some time, and there's the idea that you haven't ever seen the full Lars Nootbaar has to be somewhat intriguing, at least.
Sure. I mean, and it adds to the question of what does the future look like after what you've seen after one half of baseball this year?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, what is going to be the future outlook? I mean, they have a plan and they're going to stick to it. And Chaim was clear on that, in the meeting. But you do wonder, like, we assumed a 2 and 3 year deal. Did they? What do they think? I mean, it's one of those now. It's also one of those that we're clearly in the situation now of a lot of the ifs this work, and if Weatherholt is ready for the big leagues, and if Walker ever becomes Jordan Walker, and if Burleson is going to build on what he's built on. Some of those those boxes are starting to be checked. And how much do you buy into it? It's one of those, what is going to be the sustainability of it? I mean, it's one of those, are you going to be able to, is Wynn going to be, is he going to be able to be the offensive player that matches the defensive player? I think so. I think it's a guy that you need to up the middle defense to me is so important that I think that you have to sign him on what you have out of him now. He's just too athletic, which goes into, goes off the rails a little bit of the question, but I do kind of wonder, what does it look like? Do you give it a run to where now you feel pretty comfortable in left field? You could zero in on what you want to do in center field with maybe a Church and a Scott type situation, and then you have Walker, and you have the rest of where everybody else is going to play outside of the third base. It's still a question mark because there's nobody ready to run with that. That I would like to see the scenarios of how they look at that as far as the long-term aspect of a rebuild and where everybody fits into it, or is it far enough out where you can sell high on a Nootbaar and bring back, several of the pieces that may not be ready until, 28, 29. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm very, very interested to see that. And it would be, I think this would be a very much different situation if Lars Nootbaar had played all year long, right? I mean, if you'd gotten a feel for it, but he's only going to get to play roughly
A
6
month.
weeks,
Yeah.
before they have to start really ramping up any kind of trade. I mean, 6 weeks to the All-Star break, and that's when the discussions are really going. So how fast does he click? Now, obviously, last night looked good, but how much does he have to do to prove his value to other teams? Or is it a situation where you just, you see if he can stay healthy all year and trade him in the offseason? I don't know. I mean, I'm not rooting for them to trade Lars Nootbaar by any means.
Yes.
But again, that
But
is a beast.
you're all well. I think we're in the same mindset here. Of yes, it's one of those. I would like to see a run, and you don't want another one of the change of scenario candidates to take over. Or he would be one of those to me. You know what I mean? If it's one of those, he's like, well, healthy. He, checks a lot of the boxes you want. But you also, it's one of those. His market may never be higher than he gets in 6 weeks.
Right.
And that'll be interesting to see how they angle on that. If they utilize that, but if they're firmly in the wild card standings and think you can make a run, how important that is. Just to the messaging in the beginning was, we just don't want to be a team that gets the wild card. We want to challenge for the division. So I don't know how much that's going to be tested in year one.
Looks like Newt is arbitration eligible at the end of this year and then becomes a free agent at the end of the next season. So, so you can, you don't have to trade him at the trade deadline. Now you get into the, the murkiness of the CBA issues and stuff like that. But, I don't know. I think that's going to be kind of interesting to see. What's also going to be interesting to see is how they manage this roster over the next little bit. Again, we had Nootbaar come up once the JC went down. We also saw Ryan Fernandez go on the injured list and Matt Swanson come back up, which that's going to be something to kind of watch as well. The Cardinals have done some moves. We talked about it. It was right before. We didn't talk about it last week because they did it right after, but they brought up Nelson Velasquez and Jimmy Crooks, your breakfast partner. Alan saw him in St. Louis on Sunday morning. But we've seen that Nathan Church and Ramon Urias are on a rehab assignment right now. They've played for a couple of days in Memphis. And again, they could be down there, I think 20 days. So they could be there for a while, but it also doesn't feel like either one of those guys. It's not the Lars Nootbaar thing. Lars needed to be down there for all 20. And granted, in the past, we've seen the front office, a guy gets a game or two down there and they bring him up, right? I don't know that they're going to do that, but it's probably coming sooner rather than later on these two guys. How does that fit in this roster? I mean, who gets, because there are some guys that are, may not have options that may have to be dealt.
Yeah, it's. I thought you had a great question when we were just sitting there talking on, in the stands a little bit afterwards of it. Now, this is going to kind of veer off of what we were talking about, but it's kind of still in the roster. The way the roster works now, Velasquez has to stay up, right?
Yeah, I mean, he would have to pass through waivers. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts on that, and I mean, I think they like the safety net of Urias, so you may be right. He may come up, sooner rather than later, but I don't know. It'll be interesting how they. I don't have a clear answer to your question, or actually a clear belief on how it'll work, because I just don't know. I think they want to see JC with everyday at bats, but then comes up and doesn't get a lot of runs. So I mean, I really, really don't know how it's going to work or who's going to be a part of it. Or do you see a release coming of any of the a DFA of any of these guys just because there's not room on it? Or it's just, there's just a whole lot of moving parts that I can't put my finger on.
Yeah, I think for one of those guys, and I think if you want to look at it in kind of a matching situation, say Urias comes up, I think Brian Torres goes back down. I mean, as Torres is done well enough, but he hasn't. I mean, he's had his moments, obviously, and it was nice to see him at second base last night. But it also, he's got options, and that's just part of the
Sure.
deal.
Yeah.
When Church comes up, you have a decision to make because it's either, put somebody like Velasquez on waivers, or you send down Victor Scott II, who has, notably struggled. I don't know that I have problems believing that they would send him to Memphis, but he has, maybe it wouldn't hurt. And that's assuming, of course, no other injuries or health. I mean, we have seen Weatherholt out for a couple of days. If for some reason he had to go on the injured list, then that might be a different situation. But yeah, I think right now you're getting to the point where there's going to be some sort of significant thing, whether somebody's going to go on waivers or you're going to see somebody like Victor Scott go down, because there's just not any other way. I don't think they put Fermin on waivers. I think Fermin's been doing very well enough for this utility type guy. That's why I was just really surprised with the Velasquez promotion, because you had Nootbaar coming so quickly that it was going to make you have this roster crunch. And I think Velasquez has done enough that I don't think they want to take that bat off the bench. So I think, I'd hate to say it, but as much as Victor Scott has struggled, and we see it, we see flashes every once in a while.
Yeah.
But it may be where they just send him to Memphis for a couple of weeks to work on something particular and see if he can find a stroke or something, because the defense is still there. Again, we saw him steal a base last night. But I don't know how much you could judge off a Reds game, especially that Reds game. So I don't know. I mean, that seems to be the easiest. If you're looking at path of least resistance, which is obviously something we used to say about the Mo regime a lot. If you're looking at path of relief resistance to make sure you could keep all these assets, that's about the only option you got.
Sure. And I mean, and it's also one of those to where when you start hearing, lack of execution, and he was clearly talking about, you know what I mean? Ollie was clearly talking about Scott in those situations with failing to get the bunt down. You do kind of wonder where are we on the patience meter here?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's stupid for such a young guy, and especially I'm a big fan of him, and I do think that he's a big part of what they're doing as far as it's fun and whatnot. But as far as execution and doing your job, I mean, you're right in the middle of it. I did kind of wonder about that. I thought, well, is this a deal to where we're going to see a Church instead of Scott here for a little while, get a little bit of run? Is that going to be that possibly be the next move? I don't know. I mean, I have been impressed with what we've seen out of Church this year. That was a guy that I had kind of written off even last year. And then in spring, I go, man, he's getting a lot of run. And then it was kind of intriguing to see when they were both in the outfield, because I thought your outfield was fantastic when you went Church, Scott, Walker. And that's another thing we haven't talked nearly enough about, is how good, how well defensively he has been in right field.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, that's pretty nice. But then you add in a Nootbaar that could be really intriguing offensively and defensively, and one of those guys in center. Well, it's pretty exciting to see. But you're right. I mean, right now it's a square peg in a round hole situation, and somebody's going to have to move on it.
Yeah. And this is another reason why Joshua Baez hasn't gotten a call up yet either, is we're already having these kind of issues.
Yeah.
I guess the other possibility, and I think it's less of a possibility than even sending out Victor Scott, is that Pedro Pages should have options. You could send him to Memphis for a while, assuming you're comfortable enough with Herrera and Crooks, which, Herrera's catching twice a week. You want Jimmy Crooks he's going to catch the bulk of this. Again, they really like what Pages brings to the table. They like him, helping prepare. They like a lot of these things. And I get that. But it's also a situation where that is a possibility. I don't expect them to do it, but again, when you're carrying and we saw this with Yohel Pozo to some degree, when you're catching a third catcher just as a security blanket to some degree, it can be cause of roster issues.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And they have stuck to their guns at least for the first week of how they're going to deploy these guys. And Crooks is getting a lot of run. Herrera's getting a lot of time to catch. The the I to me, this is a proving ground year. We know that, and they're going to give as much time for him to catch as possible. But as much of a roster crunch as Pages is, it's the fact that you have to. I don't know. Gosh, Herrera DH is a whole lot for a guy they want to catch. You know what I mean? And I like Herrera.
Mm-hmm.
I think that plays into the roster as much as the Pages deal does. It's. I think if you probably. If this was any other year, I think you would see a Pages Crooks type catching situation and then Herrera just DHing the full time if you didn't have to prove that, where he's going to be able to play in the long term, not to have a young full-time DH like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it did find it interesting that there was a game. It may have been, I don't think it was last night. I think it was 2 nights ago, I guess, maybe that Herrera caught and Pages, or not Pages, Crooks DH.
Crooks, yeah.
So it's also like they want to get both those bats in the lineup as much as possible. I don't know. You're right. Pages is a great backup catcher in a situation where you don't have this situation. I mean, a normal situation, Crooks Pages would be perfect. But they never, and I mean, it was not terrible, not necessarily ideal. Pages had his struggles, but it wasn't terrible when it was Herrera Pages. It to some degree is much like, and I always go back to Colton Wong. When he first came up and they had to play Mark Ellis and stuff over him, it was to some degree, it wasn't because Colton Wong wasn't hitting, it was the fact that nobody else was hitting and they couldn't afford to take that spot. If Gorman had been hitting and Scott had been hitting and that bottom of that lineup wasn't such a black hole, you wonder, I mean, obviously Crooks had done a lot of things to force the issue, but you wonder if they would have been okay with just leaving it as Herrera Pages for a little bit longer. But with, nothing happening after the cleanup spot, they needed to have something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's how the roster's never perfect, right. But you hit the nail on the head of sometimes you have to play these guys because other guys aren't performing. I felt like that's been a big problem of the Cardinals for the last 4 or 5 years, but yeah, I've often wanted that. I really like Herrera and he's a mainstay in the lineup every day. But boy, it'd be really nice if he was a third baseman DH instead of a catcher DH, and kind of, and then kind of explain it a little bit more.
Yeah, that would be that would solve a lot of problems, but a little hard to do that move. Let's before we let's kind of shift a little bit here. We have not talked a lot about the pitching staff today.
Yeah.
And honestly, they've done. It's been pretty remarkable to see, and they had some numbers on the broadcast last night, specifically for Leahy, but also we've seen that otherwise the strikeout rate has significantly increased over the last month or so. And I know they asked Dusty Blake about it, and it was some idea of being more comfortable with their pitches and having more information about how to attack people and things of that nature. I don't know. It's just been. I mean, again, it's not to the hey, they're striking everybody out, but they've moved into the closer to the middle of the pack type of thing in some of those numbers, which is a significant increase from that first month where they struck out like 2 batters the whole month, I think.
Sure.
So, I mean, what do you make of that, and is that encouraging?
Well, complete transparency. Before we were on with Alex last week, I was digging around a little bit and was part of the things I want to talk about is, hey, I worry more about pitching sustainability than anything going into this wild card. If you're going to stay involved, if you're going to be in the middle of it because you just don't strike out enough guys and whatnot. And I'll be darned if like the next 3 to 4 starts up to that, I was like, well, this is intriguing. and it stayed that way.
Yeah.
For the past couple, at least for the past week. And I was like, well, we're going on a 2-week run here. I know that's not forever, but hey, it's improving, and that's what they want to see. Yeah. So I don't know, because my bigger concern of the contention this year was going to be they don't have anybody ready. We talked about Gorman, no heir apparent ready. I'm not so certain they have much on the pitching staff that would be ready, to come up, and even made the comment when we were all together, like, this would be one of those years that would make sense to bring in a Lester. You know what I mean? On a 1 year as that veteran guy that's going to fill that 5th or 6th starter role, and maybe keep you in a game once a week, type situation. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know the sustainability of this. I'm not really sure. It's we'll see how it goes, and I'm sure there's pitching guys that know a heck of a lot more than I do about how this is going to work. But hey, it has been intriguing and somewhat exciting to see that you have the 5 starters in the rotation that are succeeding now. And I love the idea of the Dobbins. I'm not so quick to put him in a rotation spot, but man, the 3+ inning relief spots, like, that was amazing on Sunday night.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
You may think you know McDonald's drinks, but you don't know them like this. From fruity refreshers like the Strawberry Watermelon Refresher and the Mango Pineapple Refresher with popping boba, to crafted sodas like the Sprite Berry Blast with berry-flavored Sprite topped with cold foam. Who knew ice-cold drinks could be so fire? 6 all-new drinks are here. Try them all, now at McDonald's. Refreshers contain caffeine.
That was great last night, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was leading up to that. I'm on Sunday night. He gives up the leadoff bomb, and then he was just nails the rest of the way. Got out of a 2nd, 3rd, no out situation. It was really, really nice. And then to see last night come in, do the same thing, save your bullpen, and throw 80+ pitches out of a relief role. It was awesome. If you remember it, you don't even. It's in recent memory, and heck, it might be this week when it happens. You used to do that, buy the bullpen some time, then you would go back down and get your Memphis start back in, and that may happen. I don't know, but man, that is a very nice weapon to have for now.
I don't think they're going to do that, and they didn't do that again after the Chicago game. And they really seemed to have this idea that they want to have Dobbins at the major league level, and I think it's fair enough. Who pitched Sunday night?
Sunday was Liberatore start. No. It was Liberatore started Sunday night.
Okay, yeah, because Leahy pitched for
Saturday.
Saturday game when we were there. Because I was about to wonder if it was going to be a bit of a piggyback. They talked about the numbers that Leahy has, where he's really good the first time and pretty good the second time, and absolutely terrible the third time around.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a pretty standard, except that it's pretty extreme for Leahy. And I just wondered if they were keeping Dobbins around a little bit for piggyback but I figure there is a little bit. It's not just necessarily piggyback with Leahy, but a piggyback in general, because there were a lot of games that are probably going to happen. They're not consistent enough that you have to worry about it every day or every week. But there are a lot of times where these starters, if they don't have it all working, they're going to hit their pitch limit, or they're going to go around, or everything like that until they're already hitting that third time around in the 4th inning, something just like we saw last night. And you're going to need somebody to, you don't want to use your bullpen like that all the time, or you also want to stay in the ballgame, right? I mean, if you're having to use the full bullpen, you may have to be using people like Swanson and stuff like that in situations you don't want to. So I think that they've found this to be effective, but I also feel like, if come July that they trade Dustin May, which is a very, very good possibility, then they have Dobbins stretched out and ready to go, and you don't even have to call him up. Now, will he go back down? I wouldn't be shocked if it just worked that way here and there, but I think for the most part right now they're content to have him up even while he's resting, and kind of treating him as a 6th starter, even though he's running out of the bullpen.
Yeah, that's and I like that. And I had not I had not considered the May situation to where he may not be here long, and that's that's another sell high that he's probably brought in for that reason. And honestly, he's pitched well enough that there's going to be some people that are interested. That is a really good point to where this may be an intrinsic move to where that may have been the plan all along, and to know that hey, Dobbins is definitely part of the future, and he's seen at least through these last two appearances that he can beat guys.
Yeah, yeah, I think and again, how they would do things with if Richard Fitz was available might be
Yeah,
slightly different. Having another guy, um, because right now, I mean, with Dobbins up, there's not a real clear spot. I mean, if somebody got hurt, Dobbins would have to shift into that rotation spot. Um, but I think for right now, I think I like what they're doing with him. I'm glad. Like last night, it would have been really easy to let somebody else throw that ninth inning at garbage time, right? They're up 10-3.
yeah,
But instead, I think a lot of times they would have in the past. Dobbins would have gone 3, maybe 4, and somebody else would have just finished up. They let him take it. I mean, he didn't have his pitch count wasn't high or anything like that comparatively. I mean, he threw 70-something pitches, but it was just a good thing to see. I liked it. There was some old time baseball feel to some degree in that game.
100%. Yeah,
and hopefully they'll do more of that. And right, Dobbins has pitched well. I was a little bit concerned last night that foul ball that would have made it a 3-run home run if it had gone just a little bit the different direction, and I would have been interested to see how the game would have shaken out after that point. But thankfully it was foul and we didn't have to worry about it. And he bounced back from that, got a guy out. And it went well. So I am been very pleased with that result. And I mean, already we're seeing benefits of those trades that Chaim made, even though so many of those responses or those results are going to be later on, as those guys are in the minor leagues right now. Getting a guy like Dobbins back that can contribute now was a big thing.
Yeah, and it was awesome. One of the benefits of Dobbins on Sunday night is I was able to describe to Amber how you can get a save in his situation. She goes, "How's that considered a save?" And I was like, "Well, let me tell you." You know what I mean? I said, and I had to get into it. I was like, "Well, back in the day, it used to be 3 innings." I said, and that was very, very common for some of these guys. That used to not be a 1 inning deal. I was a little bit intrigued on Sunday night as well. They warmed up Romero and O'Brien at certain times to come and get him, and he was just effective enough to where they didn't need him, and he set them both down in the ninth. So I was like, well, to warm them up and not use them says a lot.
Which is interesting because those are two guys that right now I don't have a whole lot of confidence in. I mean, Romero's kind of always kind of danced in the raindrops to some degree, been able to get out of situations, but on. O'Brien has struggled. He gave up the 3 runs. What was it? Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And Marble ran him back out there Wednesday, and he got out of it. He pitched. He didn't give it. They got the win, all that, but it didn't hurt that Texas bunted in that inning, gave him an out. I still don't think that it's all there, even though I've seen twice this week in national things. I think maybe it was definitely Passan, maybe Ken Rosenthal, talk about how the Cardinals could trade their, would they trade their closer O'Brien or whatever the case may be. It just feels like he's not what he was, and hopefully the Cardinals could still sell high on him.
Yeah, that's I wondered about that after we talked about the trade last week, or we talked about that, and I was like, well, now he's really come back down to earth. So we'll see some deployment this weekend. Let's see. I think they may be dancing on that side of let's we've got to keep the value high, but we've also got to and by doing so, we're going to have to pitch him more. So yeah, we'll see how that works. But yeah, I mean, that's a trade that you're going to have to make. Yeah. And rebuild that bullpen just because you can get you want to be able to maximize your return on that, which if it keeps going this way, you won't.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, a guy like Ryan Stanek, who we all were very, very concerned about in April, has become, I mean, he's still got a little bit of wildness to him, but for the most part, he's been very reliable over the last 6 weeks. And again, building up that trade value because he's a 1-year guy. He's probably going to get moved because that's what happens with 1-year guys at deadlines. But I think, a month or two ago, we would have said this guy might not make it to the trade deadline because we're not going to be able to handle it. He
Yeah.
kind of figured something out, and it's been a lot better to see.
Yeah, that's and that's why I love bringing in those veteran guys with something to prove. He's somewhat exciting. May's really exciting, and it's tough for me to call May a veteran considering that I saw him pitch opener here in Tulsa just a few years ago. It's one of those that, and you're just like, well, injuries have kind of derailed it, but to see those guys, yes, it's going to cost them, and they probably won't be in Cardinals uniform for long, but it is cool to see that you're just like, hey, get in, get outs, maybe some of the younger guys to see that, hey, this is how it works, and the benefits of them being here on the short term may be long lasting.
Yeah, hopefully so. That's what Stanek even talked about earlier, was trying to be a mentor to the guys and things like that. And, I'm sure that impact can be there even after he is gone to another organization. So I don't know that, and George Soriano has kind of developed into that guy that
Yes.
I think a lot of people would rather see him in the ninth a lot of times than Riley O'Brien, and it may come to that at times.
Sure. That's been a dang good signing for a guy that's been released several times. That's but that's the beauty of a bullpen too. The beauty and the struggle with a bullpen. You sometimes the pieces work, sometimes they don't, and they usually don't work for a long period of time, regardless.
True.
So
True.
yeah, it's been fun to watch. But he's pitched some big moments for him, and they put him in those 6th and 7th a lot.
Yeah, he's definitely developed into that, and I know we were all kind of confused when they traded for him over Andre Granillo, but Granillo has struggled with the Nationals and has gone back to minors,
Yeah.
and they knew what they saw in Story. I didn't like we heard afterwards. They've been trying to get him for a while, so they obviously had some idea of what was going to work for him, and it has for sure. So you're right, though. These are bullpen pieces, and just because you trust them today doesn't mean you trust them tomorrow. But it's been nice to see that kind of settle. Even with O'Brien and Romero being kind of iffy, and we'll see what happens again with the return of Matt Swanson. For the most part, the bullpen has been pretty reliable. Brule has his moments. He has good moments. He has bad moments. You just never know what's going to be out there. But for the most part, if you give that bullpen a 2-run lead in the 6th inning or so, you feel pretty good. You're not terribly surprised if it blows, but you feel pretty good that they're going to hold it.
Sure. Yeah, that's they put it together well, and you're right. There's a lot of moving parts with the guys that have been up and the guys that have been down, and the guys that they brought in. So it's also one of those. Hold it together with duct tape as long as you can, and that is how a bullpen works. Honestly, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, the Cardinals are going to go. They're going to have. The Cardinals still have not slipped over under 500 all year long, and I think by now they'll be game like 67 before they can. So, they're going to spend less than 100 games under 500 this year, which is remarkable given how we thought the season was going to go. A lot of people thought this was a team that might not win 70 games. They're almost halfway there already. So, it's pretty remarkable to see this, and it's been a lot more fun than I think we all expected.
Sure, and that's all we ask for, to be in it as long as you want. If I'm moving on from worry about the rotation and worry about the pitching staff overall to my next worry is just how long is it going to I'm actually fairly optimistic about the point I'm getting ready to make. You want to know when Weatherholt may run into a wall a little bit, just because he hasn't played as many games. And you want to say that because they're so young that it may happen. But the fact is, their young guys have played full seasons already. So that shouldn't be an issue. So as far as fatigue, he would be the one that you'd circle a little bit, and maybe Crooks if they're going to keep catching him 2 to 3 days a week. But that's where the Pajes factor comes in, and how much you're going to catch Herrera the rest of the way, which seems like it's going to be a lot. So as far as sustainability of what they're doing now, I feel a lot better than I did maybe 2 weeks ago, because I just kind of thought they would run out of pitching innings, which may happen, but it's intriguing right now to where they are. And on the backside of that, I'm like, how many of these guys are going to hit a wall because they haven't played full seasons? And really, the only one that you can circle that's obvious is Weatherholt.
Yep.
So I don't know. Let's just keep doing it. You know, one thing that you and I have talked about for 10 summers, and, you know, I kind of preach this more than anything of selfishly, just don't ruin my summer. You know, if we stay in this as long as we want, even if you close, you know, just short of a wild card spot, hey, what I've seen in so far this year has been intriguing, and what we've seen out of the front office is enlightening, and that equates to positivity for me. That makes me excited about the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, we went into the season thinking that we'd get a chance to watch these young guys and enjoy them, even if the results weren't there. We've had a chance to watch these young guys and enjoy them, and the results are there, and that's even better. So, you know, even if it does stumble down the stretch, or they trade some players, or whatever the case may be, it's been a success. I think that's fair to say right now, right? I mean, you know, I've seen that kind of bandied about before. Is, you know, if they just kind of fall off a cliff now, is this your success? And I
Yes,
think it is.
agreed. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, there was there was a part last year to where you're just like, well, it wasn't entertaining, or it wasn't appointment viewing, and that was the first time I've done that in the last few years. You know, and I just don't think that'd be the case, because one, they're enjoyable to watch, and it's like, okay, the proving ground on some of these guys makes it worth watching as well, and I've had a good time with it.
Yep, it has been fun. Anything from this week we haven't touched on? Anything from this trip that we didn't touch on that you want to before we wrap it up today?
Not that I can think of. I'm going to push for that Jordan Walker vote if you get a chance to. The way that that's one thing too, being with the Cardinals being on the MLB ticket anymore as far as games. It's a QR code and you can vote during the game.
That's true. Yeah,
it's awesome, and Walker deserves it.
Yeah, I guess I've seen the QR code come up. I haven't actually done it yet, so I guess I need to do that.
And when you run his numbers against the National League outfielders, he's firmly right there. It's you know, it's Soto and basically Walker at this point. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Walker's going to be an all-star. I don't think, unless something happens really weird, he's going to be an all-star. Whether he gets voted in or not, he will be the all-star. I don't know. I mean, again, it's always interesting because how you build a roster, especially when you know you've got to take some from everybody and who's going to be and all this. But just thinking about it, I don't know who else might be. I mean, if Mason Wynn was hitting more, we would say I still think Mason Wynn could be one.
Weatherholt has a shot.
Although I think there's a lot of good second basemen out there.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's a knock, is it's really good. Yeah. It's going to be Marte and everybody else, really.
And Herrera hasn't hit quite to that level to be one, I don't think. And you know, again, Riley O'Brien might have been 3 weeks ago. I don't know that he is now.
Yeah.
You know, could they go with Michael McGreevy just because he's got some good numbers and he's doing good things? We don't know how sustainable it is, but right now it's working. Maybe, I don't know. I guess it depends on some of the other situations, but Walker's obviously the best chance for the Cardinal All-Star, and definitely it would be nice if he got voted in.
Yeah, it would be nice, especially when a lot of people were trying to write him off.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, we rehashed this, I know, a lot, but it's fair to say. I mean, you go into the last week of spring training, and we didn't know if Jordan Walker should be on this team or not, right? There was I didn't think they would, but there was a legitimate argument of starting him in Memphis. And then he had, he took a day off or two in the lab and had a great last day of spring, and it's just gone from there. I don't fault anybody that thought, he was done, because we weren't sure about we knew this was last shot, right? I mean, there was that idea that maybe this just isn't going to work. But thankfully it has clicked a little bit more than we thought it might. And it's been a lot of fun to see. And it's been nice to see, and we've seen it this week, right, that he's gone into funks. I mean, he struck out 6 in a row against the Rangers over 2 games, and he's been able to work himself out of it without it being a huge spiral. And we've seen now last night and the game before 2 3-hit games, and it's been a bit since he's hit a home run, but he had a double last night that was really hit well. And a lot of good hitting over the last little bit, and the home runs will come. So I think that's the biggest thing is he's not let himself spiral into this, huge funk. Even if he goes a couple weeks without looking like the Jordan Walker we've seen this year, that Jordan Walker's still there.
Yeah, yeah, and then you just see the situation that he's young, and I'm glad that Bloom brought that up while we were talking the other night. But it's really really cool to see that he had probably a 3 or 4 game stretch where he looked lost again, chasing the outside slider, really getting beat, and then hits a ball yesterday for well over 100 EV for a double to center, and just ate up a really good center fielder. So 3 hits, and you build on that, and it's been nice to see.
Yeah,
and they interviewed him mid-game. That's one of those it's one of those that seemed foreign a year ago.
Well, I mean, yeah, just the idea that they'd be interview and anybody mid-game.
Yeah.
The change from Bally, FanDuel, all that to MLB has brought new things, and that's one of them, which is interesting. I'm of two minds of this. Interviewing a player in the middle of the game, in an All-Star game or something, especially, I don't really care because the game doesn't matter. I do hate to, but I'm kind of like, do we really need to be doing this sometimes? But I also thought that last night listening to Jordan Walker was fun, that he's a good guy, he's entertaining, and again, he didn't have to go try to scale the wall while he was talking to Brad and Chip, so that was too. But it wasn't too bad. I don't know that I would use that gimmick too often, but every once in a while, it's not a bad thing to see. So it was. He's that game against Texas after he had struck out 6 times, he hit a kind of a flare, I think, that dropped in, and you saw him at first base say it's about time. I think he added a little bit of a descriptor in there as well, but and it just felt like maybe that was sometimes it just takes that one hit, even if it's something that just miss hit or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're back on track, and that seems to have done it for him.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Alan and I will be back at you next week. We'll talk about the rest of this Red Series, and the Cardinals go on the road to New York. They'll be there at the same time as some other finals thing. I don't know. Not that important, I don't think. So, but anyway, until next time, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
Runner at first, 1 out, 2-0 to Witten. Into center field. Did he? Yes! His 4th home run of the game. He has 12 RBIs. 15-2. Unbelievable. A grand slam, 2 3-run home runs, and a 2-run shot. Unbelievable.